Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Safatri Atmaja from Group 3, and we are going to discuss about emotion and communication, which that is me as a first presenter would like to give explaining about the introduction to emotion. Okay, emotion have been defined as simply the experience of energy that moves through our body. This definition implies that emotional energy is neutral and that the sensations of feelings, psychological reaction, and thought give emotion their meaning. Next is the importance of study emotions and communication. Emotions are also associated with intrapersonal communication. Our feelings affect our readiness to communicate when, how, and why we communicate, and how we interpret and respond when others communicate with us. Emotions are described as one of the most consequential of outcomes of interactions because they influence our interpretation of messages and our perceptions of self and other. Not only do emotions affect communication in general, but also they influence physical and relational health. For example, people who fail to communicate emotional distress may experience unexplained headache or stomachache. Think about what you were feeling the last time you failed to communicate. Thanks.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Amalia Kohiratin Hisan. I am from Group 4 as a second speaker, and I would like to continue the presentation. 3 parts of the brain are involved in the processing of emotion. The brainstem that surrounds the top of the spinal cord controls basic life functions such as breathing and movement, sometimes called the reptilian brain, and it is shared by all species that have a nervous system. The neocortex is the seat of the intellect, sometimes called the thinking brain or the new brain. The neocortex controls reason and rational decision. It was long thought that sense data went first to the thinking brain to be analyzed, and then to the emotional brain. The emotional brain is quicker than the thinking brain, and the fast track circuit is reflected in emotional reaction and brain activity that occur before we have time to rationally analyze in situation. In the next slide, it is amygdala. The emotions such as fear, anxiety, and anger are processed in the amygdala. The automatic that result from the amygdala are a result of evolution and are wired in the nervous system. The amygdala continue to apprise sense data so quickly that it never enters conscious awareness. This is why we sometimes experience an emotion and cannot explain it. In the next slide, the amygdala not only instantaneously assigns emotional significance to sense data, but also sends a crisis message to all parts of the brain. This crisis message is labeled the fight or flight syndrome. For example, if a small children we experience fear when we were catched by a dog, the amygdala will match this event to our current situation and influence us to experience fear at the sight of any dog. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Isniaza. I am next speaker. The types of emotion. We can classify emotion in three ways. The first is by placing them in the categories of primary or mixed. The second is by clustering them into emotion families. The third is by distinguishing them as facilitate or debilitative. The next is managing fast track circuit emotion. The neocortex is the seat of the intellect, sometimes called the thinking brain or the new brain. The emotional brain is quicker than the thinking brain, and his fast track circuit is reflective in emotional reaction and brain activity that occur before we have time or rational analysis a situation. We can also is quicker than the thinking brain, and his fast track circuit is reflective in emotional reaction and brain activity that occur before we have time or rational analysis a situation. We can also manage our slow track circuit emotion to help us communicate in competent manner. This technique considers the thoughts that cause us to experience emotion. I think that's all for me.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Tiara Gita and I'm the next speaker. And here I'm going to explain about expressing our emotions and the communication of emotion, expanding our vocabulary. Okay, so the first material is expressing our emotions. And here we need to set realistic goals, improve our emotional intelligence, learn how and when to display our emotion, and accept responsibility for our feelings when we interact with others to expressing our emotion. Jadi di sini kita perlu menetapkan tujuan yang realistis, meningkatkan kecerdasan emosional kita, serta belajar bagaimana dan kapan menunjukkan emosi kita saat berinteraksi dengan orang. The next is assessing our emotion. Although we cannot make people feel an emotion, we may hesitate to communicate certain emotion that we believe it can harmful to others, or may exacerbate problems we are experiencing. Jadi kita mungkin ragu untuk mengkomunikasikan emosi tertentu yang kita yakini dapat menyakiti seseorang atau memperburuk masalah yang kita alami. Okay, so the next material is about the communication of emotion, expanding our vocabulary. Okay, so here we can improve how we communicate our emotion by expanding our vocabulary. Jadi kita dapat meningkatkan cara kita mengkomunikasikan emosi kita dengan memperluas kosakata tentang kata-kata perasaan. Nah, contohnya seperti ini. Use a variety of single words such as I'm angry, frustrated, and relieved. Kemudian yang kedua ada describe our psychological and physical symptoms. For example, my heart is pounding and my hands are shaking. So I think that's all for me. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
My name is Arya Putrirawan and I am the last speaker. The next material is context and emotions. This context also affect how we interpret others' emotions. Knowing that the culture, relationship, gender, and individual context influence the interpretation of others' emotions will help us refrain from making faulty attribution about the reasons for others' behavior. Culture context. Happiness, sadness, and anger are emotions that people experience and express cross-culturally. However, cultures differ in terms of display rules and decoding rules. Relationship context. In addition to the culture context, the relationship context, which include our family, friends, and person with world influence the interpretation and expression of emotion. And the last is gender context. Gender influence the processing, interpretation, and communication of emotion as they relate to masculinity and femininity. That's all our presentation, and thanks for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.